DCM Works, turn the beat around. Hey guys, welcome back to the Outriders podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works. My name is David, DCM Creative Director, Lee Ryder, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Ben.
Feels good to not be on a computer
Oh,
on Skype.
feels good to be back,
Feels
mate.
good to be back in the house.
Feels good to be back in the saddle, back in the seat.
Back in the seat, this shitty seat you always
You
give me. I
got-
love it.
Look, well, the sofa's coming this week, so
Oh,
it's
dude.
going to go there. Can you, like,
There?
imagine it? Yeah.
There.
On this audio
Alright.
medium podcast,
Yeah,
I
it's
pointed.
gonna go there.
It's going to go there. But look, Ben, for this week, what's going there is the storytelling of Iron Fist.
Oh no. Oh, what a shame. What an absolute shame. There was so much potential. I mean,
I don't know what
it looked dumb from the start.
But here's the... I don't...
Even the trailer was boring.
Yeah.
I mean-
I was trying to think of like a way to approach this that didn't just sound like we were complaining again for the second week in a row. So what I'm going to try and do is I want
It's
to...
better than the Assassin's Creed movie.
Yeah.
Give it that.
Yeah, that's not hard. So I think what we should do is look at some of the good stuff first.
What we liked, what we didn't.
What we liked,
classic.
what we liked, what we didn't.
Classic thing we do to avoid the fact that we.
But usually it
aren't
ends
huge
with
fans of
usually
this.
it ends with us saying two things we liked and then yelling about how much we didn't like it.
Yeah.
I thought that the last I thought the last few episodes, the conflict there was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So the conflict between you've got this character whose name I can't remember, who's like the
What?
the leader of the bad hand. Sorry, the leader
Gal?
of the good hand. No, the other guy.
His name starts with D. Dwayne?
Dwayne
Something like
Johnson.
that.
Yeah, that guy.
No, I think the Dwayne guy is like the guy from Kunlun. The other not Iron
Yeah,
Fist.
the other bloke.
I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah, the guy.
hot guy.
Huh?
The
yeah.
cutie.
The guy.
Curly hair. Yeah.
Yes, the curly hair guy.
Curly hair guy.
So he
The leader of the actual hand. And then there's Gal, the leader of the Nazi hand.
Yeah. And so I thought the conflict between having him try and sort of lead Danny astray a bit, and then you kind of take... Because Danny, like, for some reason is still really ignorant and childlike or whatever.
God, I fucking hate him so
We'll get to
much.
that in a minute. And the conflict there between, okay, we've got this character who really isn't necessarily doing a lot of harm, and then there's kind of a lot of moral ambiguity with whether or not what they're doing is good or bad. Like, they're
Yeah.
keeping kids off the street, keeping them from doing drugs, but at what cost? Like,
Sure.
it's like Hitler Youth or whatever. Like, it's an interesting conflict that they draw, and then it's kind of ruined by the fact that the character of Danny Rand at that point is so far gone, like, development-wise,
Yeah.
that it doesn't seem to do anything for him.
I-
Like, even the fact that conflict between Colleen and him, they should have drawn that out for the rest. It should have been, like, the end of the season. It should have been, like, 4 or 5 episodes. He can't really trust her, but he wants
They
to.
just kind of glaze over it.
But
in, like, 2
she's
episodes,
like,
yeah.
Soz, I was wrong, and he's like, hey, let's
like,
make
"Alright,
out
sure."
and fuck and
Yeah.
shit. You know, like,
Um,
it's solved so quickly.
Yeah, literally after like the big argument they have, the next scene is a cut to him like he's sitting in the bed and she's like behind it. And I'm like,
totally
what?
fine.
Why isn't he not?
It
Like, why isn't he on the couch? Like, what is this?
why
It's just there were some bits that were dumb.
And especially when you think about the kind of character that he's been up to that point where you don't really understand that he's mature enough to be making those kinds of...
Yeah.
Because that's a longitudinal decision to not be... When you're pissed off at someone, to, like, then go to bed and, like, cool off and then come back the
It's
next
just
morning.
odd. Yeah,
But, like,
then he, like,
but he's like a
escapes.
child
Yeah.
who pouts and yells about everything.
As-
He does not have that kind of emotional
I
maturity in a
actually think-
relationship.
That's why I think I preferred like the first bit of the series because of that, because you don't really know, because you're not really, his memories and like his perspective is still kind of shrouded in this like it could just be him being a loony, even though it's not.
Or
Know
he
it
could
isn't
be-
because he's the main character.
But the other thing, too, is he could be kind of pretending to be really ignorant with, like,
Yeah.
a secret agenda. You know,
Yeah,
like,
and,
when he does the thing where he
especially-
changes the price of the medicine or whatever, he could have... And he sort of...
he just kind of
pretends,
does it.
Yeah, he pretends like he doesn't know that that's a bad thing to do, but maybe he's got a secret agenda that
Yeah.
he's trying to do.
And I think like especially when he's interacting with the Meachums and they're just like he's just like explaining all this stuff and they're kind of just looking at him going like,
Dude's
what are you
fucking
talking
crazy.
about? And then actually, and I don't know whether this was like a thing of like bad writing, but this actually at first I was like, this is so awkward, but then I realized how amazing it was when he then starts talking to Ward, so the father, who's
Ward-
meant to be dead.
No, Ward's the brother.
Sorry, Harold.
The father's Harold.
Yeah,
Yes.
Harold. We start talking to Harold, especially when it's Ward, Harold, and Danny. And like, Danny is like, he's like, I'm the Iron Fist. I meant to kill the hand. And Harold is like, yes. like tell me more.
Yeah.
And like Ward is off the side like, what the fuck is
Yeah, he's
wrong
like,
with
"What is
you?"
happening?
He's like, and it's that really interesting thing there where even at that stage you don't know whether Harold is like just entertaining him to like coax him into like a sense
To
of
working
like
for him or
safety, but
whatever.
then you realize like no, like there is some funky shit going on with
Dude,
Harold, and he's
and-
legit 100% serious when he says
Yeah.
we need him as the Iron Fist to kill the Hand, and
got me trapped.
and it's the kind of thing where I think if you at least up to the point where Ward start going crazy, if you take the whole story from the perspective of Ward, it's just him being surrounded by idiots going, what the fuck is going on
He's like,
right
why
now?
is this
Like, what?
happening?
I just wanted to run a business, and my dad is immortal, and now this random kid's coming in and like
And he knows kung fu.
He knows kung fu. What is going on? I think it's just
Ugh.
it's the funniest, and especially when he starts just losing it, it is the funniest breakdown of a character I've ever seen.
And it's because that's absolutely what the rest of us would do.
Yeah,
Like,
you'd just
if
be
that
like,
happened
"What
in your
is
life,
that?"
you'd be like, give me heroin.
And it's the kind of, and there are so many lines, especially when they put this is actually what I really like, when they put Danny into when they put anyone into the mental hospital, and like the doctor or whatever, he'll come and he's like, who, like, are you so and so? And he's like, no, I'm Danny Rand. I survived the airplane because I crashed and got taken in by monks, and I'm the Iron Fist, and my plan is to take out the Hand. He's like,
dude's insane.
okay, he's crazy.
Yeah.
And then when it comes back and Ward gets put into hospital, and he's just like, why are you here? It's just like, my dad is immortal.
Crazy.
My dad is
I
immortal.
mean, it's one of those things where that would work really well in the context of the universe, right? Because that's what, like, Claire's character does that a lot, where, like, throughout all the Netflix shows, like, when she first meets Daredevil, she's like, you dress up in a costume at night and you're blind and you fight guys.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah.
He's like, yeah.
When she meets Jessica Jones, she's like, you're an alcoholic with super strength and maybe you can fly. And she's like,
Yeah. And you meet
I mean, Luke Cage, she's like, you're bulletproof.
You're bulletproof.
And you live in Harlem and maybe you owned a barbershop. And he's like, yeah.
He's like, yeah.
It's like, Iron Fist is like,
So
you
when she
came
comes
from
to the High Fist, that's the funniest
she's
thing.
like, fucking whatever.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't
It's exact-
fucking.
her character when Danny's explaining it to what's his name, Chris Wing, I forget her first name.
Colleen.
He's like, I'm the Iron Fist. She's just like, yeah, sure, he's the Iron Fist. Let's go ahead.
She's like,
let's
great.
just ride this train, whatever.
Whatever. It's so good. That
mean,
sort of stuff is really fun.
yeah,
but it doesn't work in a larger context.
No,
of
that's
the
the
show.
problem.
Because
Like the show just kind of sucks because of
like,
it.
and that because that shit works really well when it's like Matt Murdock, right? Because there are in like, and particularly Luke Cage does it really well because he's like,
because it's very tongue in
he'll
cheek.
pick a dude up and he's
Yeah.
like, what are you gonna do? I'm
in this one, it's
bulletproof.
like-
what are you gonna do?
They take like Danny, if he like halfway through the show, like series, realizes the ridiculousness of him going around saying he's the Iron Fist. If there's like a shift in character where he goes, instead of this weird thing where he's like, I am the Iron Fist, I must take out
And
the
then
Hand.
spouting out weird like
and then spouting out stuff
proverbs
where he's
and
like,
shit.
I also want to still be Danny Rand. It's like, no, just why didn't you just become Danny Rand, but also look at my glowing fist?
But I think-
like just become ridiculous.
Well, but not even that, but like he's this ignorant child baby who like
Yeah.
spouts out
And
these
he
fucking
never- he
proverbs.
doesn't change.
And all they needed was one person in the show to be like, you keep saying that shit. Do you know what it means? Because that would be a great character development. Where Claire's like, you keep saying all of these proverbs. Do you even know what they mean?
And you could have
Or
like
do
a
you
moment
just
where
have you
he's
just
like,
memorize
oh.
them? And he'd be like, oh shit.
It's
Well,
like-
maybe I'm just spouting this out because it's what I was taught
He's
to
got
say.
like this weird ego thing going on.
And then that's when you would have the turning point in the character where he's like, fuck, maybe I don't know everything, and I need
But
to
he's
work
like, I still
together.
got the Iron Fist though. So
But
I could
instead,
do
he's like,
something.
I know justice, I've got to kill the Hand. And then at that scene at the end where he's like, I'm going to go up and I'm going to kill Harold. And they're like, why? What are you doing? You're going to get yourself killed. And he's like, I'm going to do it. And both of them are like, dude,
It's
that's
just-
craI'm going to go and kill him.
I'm gonna do it.
The Iron
You're like,
Fist.
why?
You're like, Danny, dude, fucking just tell the fucking police he'll go to prison. It's fine. Fuck, it's not that hard. It's just, through the whole thing, it's just infuriatingly
Yeah.
close to being a good show.
It's the kind of thing where like a character says a thing, and you're like, please, like just like crack a smile and be like, nah, I'm just kidding. I'm just fooling you. You're just waiting for that moment, and then like episode 6 rolls around, you're like, all right, turning point, and then like
No.
episode 8 rolls around, you're like, turning point, and then episode 10 comes, you're like, turning point, please, and then you're like halfway through the last episode, and you're like, surely,
It's gonna happen,
surely
right?
now,
No.
nah.
I will say though, I did like I thought that the chemistry between Finn Jones and whoever plays Colleen Wing was actually quite good. Like, they have a few scenes, particularly anytime they're doing martial arts together, that's really well choreographed. Like, whenever they're sort of like sparring or one of my favorite scenes in the show is when he's doing his stretches in the morning, and she mirrors him. Like, she comes in and she's like shadowing him, and then mirrors him. Danny and Colleen, yeah. And she mirrors him, and that's like a really good scene that shows that they have chemistry and have this understanding that goes beyond them talking.
Yeah, no, them together is actually pretty
That's
good.
really cool, but that doesn't work in the larger context of a show where you have a character like Danny who, throughout the show, they struggle to find a voice for him, which I think is like the hardest thing for them, right? Because what they want is they want this character who comes back, there's no idea about the world. He's been like in a monastery for 15 years, and he knows crazy kung fu.
Yeah, but then he does stuff like, even like the first fight scene in the entire series, where he just kind of like fights some dudes and goes up an elevator. You're like, but why?
Yeah,
like, it's so out of character.
It doesn't make
like
any
they're almost
sense.
trying to pull like the Daredevil thing where he's like fully aware of what he's doing, but it's like, but he shouldn't be. He's like walking around without any shoes.
It's the
he doesn't
lack
know
of-
what a hot dog is.
It's the lack of consistency with his character that's the biggest problem. Is because and this comes through as well with the kung fu that he does, where some scenes he feels like this invincible badass who can't be touched, and then other scenes he seems to struggle to fight altogether. And there's no like he should be a guy that can win every single fight, right? I feel like in this universe, Daredevil is a better fighter than he is.
I think my favorite thing is like it's in like the last episode where they're just like go kill Danny. It's like, all right, it's like take the guns because he's not bulletproof, and you're like, good solution.
Yeah, you're like, but why wasn't that what everyone's been doing?
I know exactly. It's like, why don't you just shoot him day one?
And it's frustrating because he's supposed to be this immortal weapon, and he's supposed to be the best at kung fu in the world. Like, that's his thing, right?
Yeah.
He's the best at kung fu. Luke Cage is bulletproof. Jessica Jones is a bit strong and angry, and Daredevil is like
blind.
this amazing fighter, and he's also blind, right?
Yeah.
And he's got this rage inside of him, and that's
Yeah.
why those characters are interesting. And I think that's why that dynamic would work, is because what you're talking about is Daredevil, who's like this character that's full of rage, and then Jessica Jones, who's also full of rage, but for a different reason and in a different way. And then you've got Luke Cage, who's just like, I'm here for the ride. And then you've got Danny Rand, who is supposed to be like this kind of wise, really good kung fu fighter. And so he and Luke Cage get along a lot in the comics because they have a lot in common.
Right.
And then Daredevil and Jessica Jones would, I think,
they're
get
just kinda
along.
off the
They never
chain.
really get paired together in the comics, but I think they would get along together because they're
Yeah.
both crazy, insane rage people.
Yeah.
But the problem with this universe now is that Danny Rand is so inconsistent character-wise, and also fighting level. Like, is he a kung fu genius? Because a few times he just gets hit by
mean,
people with sticks.
Yeah, no, I think
doesn't-
there's some weird characterizations where like I think part of it comes down to, and this is kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing. They did a really good job of being authentic with a lot of their fighting styles. So like I've mainly been told this by people who I do fencing with who do like other martial arts, but they're like, yeah, the kung fu is pretty legit. All of like the kendo inspired stuff, so just like what's her name's sword fighting, all of her stuff's pretty good. The Hand has some really good like weapons fighting. There's like there's the drunken fist
so good.
guy.
Such a
That's
good
like
scene.
incredible. Because it's like really spot on. But then it's like they're like, all right, we want to showcase this, and it's like, especially with like the drunken fist, they're like, we got to show him beating up. We got to show him winning for a bit, and then he's like beating up on Danny Rand.
It's
You're
ridiculous.
Like, this shouldn't happen.
Also,
Like,
what you should see in every single fight is Danny Rand go in nonchalant, right? He should go in like calm as a cucumber.
yeah.
Go into the fight, and
But
then
him just as an actor, he's
with
just
someone
like-
with someone like the drunk guy, right? Like, he's going to this
Yeah,
fight, and
he's
then
like,
he gets like
cucumber calm.
he gets hit once, and he's like, oh, I gotta actually pay attention now.
Yeah.
And then he goes in and like fucking takes him out because he's like the immortal weapon. He's the best at kung fu in the fucking world. He put his hands inside a dragon. Like,
Yeah.
that's how he got his power. And they're like, nah, he's just okay at kung
He's
fu
just
sometimes.
pretty good.
He gets hit a bit. Like,
He's
no,
just a
he should be
boy.
this fucking guy where, like, you send... He can take out 5 guys in a blink. 10 guys he struggles with, right?
And then you look at Daredevil, and you're like, oh wait, he should have like they bust their load on Daredevil on him being like.
There is some shit in that show where, like, you just... like,
I mean, I
Daredevil's
spent-
different because it's like a slog,
like
right?
thugs,
And
yeah.
it's painful shit. You've got characters that... I think it's a different dynamics. You've got characters in Daredevil where... He's this guy that just keeps getting up,
They
right?
like they hit heavy, they fall over heavy,
and then they
keep
get
going.
and they get
And
up.
it's like I get that, but it's like I spent this entire season waiting for the equivalent
never
for
happens.
like, and like there were moments like, you know, when they set up like that compound fight in like the 10th episode, I was like this surely has to be it. Big open space, there's like 20 dudes, it's two of them,
And it's just Kung
the Iron
Fu,
Fist
and
boys,
it's just Ian.
and there's a cut on like
It's the
every
Iron
single
Fist
punch.
boys. It should be like it should be like a
should be an
helicopter
entire-
shot.
yeah, it should just
and
be
it
a
should slowly
top
crane
down.
up
Yeah.
as they beat the fucking shit out of
And
this
nah,
massive
it was
one
full of
shot
cuts.
of like them beating the fuck out of 20 dudes in like
Yeah,
perfect
I was
sync.
waiting for the crazy 88,
Oh.
but we got
It never
we
happened.
got nothing. Yeah.
I don't. But why? It's you have the budget. You have the ability. You've done it in fucking Daredevil. Like there's a scene at the end of Daredevil season 2, which is the lesser good of the two seasons. There's a scene in that on top of a rooftop at the end with Elektra, Daredevil, and the fucking Punisher fighting like 50 fucking 50 ninjas.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Like it's the best thing I've ever seen in like an arena combat situation.
Sure.
But then you get this show where they have like all these opportunities to do similarly fucking badass stuff.
There were so many times where I was just like,
That
is
ring,
this the one?
The ring fight where they make the ring out of their blood, which is
Yeah.
impractical, first of all. But
It's a bit
that
ridiculous.
the concept
yeah,
of,
they get into the ring and they just pass out. Yeah.
but the two guys, yeah,
Whoa, whoops.
those two brothers could have been really cool.
Yeah.
Could have had them have like a really unique fight
There
style.
was like a moment in every episode that could have had a very good fight scene. None of
and
them
never
did.
happened. The only really good fight scene aside from the drunken
Drunk fit.
fight would be the Bride of 1,000 Spiders, which is the woman who like tries to seduce him and like poisons him.
Yeah, that was a decent fight.
And that
'cause
was
it
okay,
mostly
but
dialogue.
that was kind of ruined by the fact that they didn't fight.
yeah.
Like the cool, because that really what you could have done there is you could have leveraged a lot of Danny's character, right? Because he's not used to being seduced, he's not used to being like in an adult situation. So you have her
'Cause he's
doing
a
that,
perpetual
and then
child.
just like beating you know, bashing him across the head, and then he gets even dizzier, and she poisons him again and does it again, and you could kind of have some interesting conflict.
yeah.
But instead, he just kind of swings wildly and then is okay for some reason.
Yeah,
Like he
he's
just
just
grits his
fine.
teeth and is angry, and that makes
Yeah,
the poison go away.
Grin and bear it.
That's not science. Like, I don't know. It just felt like they had all these opportunity, and like they didn't really use the Iron Fist in some of the ways they could have, right? Like,
I mean, they
he's-
taught him how to heal with the Iron
That was a
Fist,
cool
and
moment.
then never let him.
do it.
Never gave it.
He
to
should
him
have
again.
punched some fucking walls in and shit.
Yeah, he punched
I wanted
one
to
wall.
see him, like, someone says something that pisses him off, and he just like punches him through a fucking wall.
Yeah.
They're like, bang, they're out the fucking window. Like,
I think it's the kind of thing where they barely use the Iron Fist, and it's really disappointing because you look at like Daredevil, and it's like he's blind and a good fighter. Every episode has like blindness and good fighting.
he's doing shit where he's throwing stuff and it's ricocheting and pinging across shit and hitting people.
And I haven't seen Jessica Jones yet, but I'm going
it's
to.
not.
But you look at like Luke Cage, is just like he's bulletproof and he's black. And he does a whole lot of bulletproof.
He does
good
a lot of
old-
both things
good
is
black
what he
stuff.
does, yeah.
I mean, it's like it's a grand time. And you have the Iron Fist, and he's the greatest warrior ever, and he can basically punch through walls. He does it twice, and all the fight scenes suck. And it's like,
I don't
you just
understand-
miss the point.
Did you? And also, the first 8 episodes, this pissed me off. And I can't explain.
First 8 episodes were just like Law and Order Iron Fist edition, to be honest.
But okay, so he
It's
has
just a lot of
he
business.
has a fucking magical power, right?
Sure.
And he's like, guys, I have a magical power. I was training for Kung Fu for 15 years. And they're like, huh, okay. And then he does Kung Fu, and they're like, still don't believe you. And they're like, okay, well, just show me the Iron Fist. He's like, I can't because I used it
can't.
before. And then next time they're like, show me the Iron Fist. He's like, I can't because of these drugs. And they're like, show me the Iron Fist. He's like,
I can't because
like,
I just
can't
don't
because I
feel
can't
like
focus.
it.
They're like, show me the Iron Fist. He's like, I can't because my chi isn't recharged. It's like, that's not conflict. The conflict there is that he just can't do it
He
for
just
some
can't
reason.
do it,
And they keep
yeah.
making up reasons. Just
God.
have him do Kung Fu. And then they'll be like, oh, he's a Kung Fu genius. He's clearly been training for 15 years.
Even if it was just a thing where he's just like,
Oh.
they're like, prove it. And he's like, punch me. And they're like, what? That's ridiculous. He's like, no, do it. Like, I'm sure Ward would gladly
would beat
punch
the
him.
crap out of
Ward
him.
would go cram. And then he could be like, you could do the the blocky stuff. And it's like, man, you're good at Kung Fu. It still doesn't prove that you're Danny Rand, but I guess you're good at Kung Fu.
Also, prove that you're Danny Rand. I don't know. How about you just tell him some personal details about your life from before?
he's gonna pick out all the M&Ms.
Holy shitballs. I am Danny Rand because this was my childhood story. You can check against my childhood story.
But they're like,
Because you
"Nah,
were part of my
it's not good
childhood.
enough."
Tell him about the time you played Scrabble on the roof and what hit me in the balls. That's a good example of a personal story that
mean,
Ward would remember that would mean that he's Danny
it's-
fucking Rand.
He does that for joy.
I-
He does that like to get joy on his side. But even then,
No,
like,
it's elaborate. He's like, he tells some story about
The
a
M&Ms.
carnival and shit, and it sends M&Ms or fucking whatever.
yeah, it's just.
Just have him, just be like, Ward,
Take
you
a
were a
lie
dick to me
detector.
when we were a kid. You used to hit me in the dick all the time.
How about this? take a genetics test.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Like, you
yeah,
could probably
DNA.
do that. DNA.
Well, I don't know if they're related to the Meachums though.
No, but like you probably have
The parents are dead,
the
though.
parents'
They're dead, though.
DNA on file.
Yeah.
They're like the richest people.
Oh no,
in,
but
like,
they did
the
explain
city.
that in the show. That was like the Meachums had gone. Harold was destroying all that evidence.
Oh, okay, right.
The
Yeah,
Ha-
true, good
Harold with
point.
the hand had
Yeah,
like
he
gone
did.
ahead and destroyed
Yeah.
like even all the fingerprints and shit.
Yeah, right.
But I don't
That
know.
is
Just
true.
provide basic personal details about your childhood.
And I guess that's what he does. But like the whole like.
It's just very convoluted that they
Yeah,
don't
it's
realize.
the kind of thing where you're like, oh, the big deal in this season is going to be like, oh, like figuring out he's Danny Rand. And you're like, oh wait, no, they solved that in the fifth
But
episode.
this is also
You're
a
like,
world where the Avengers happens all the time.
Was that pre? This is pre or post?
That's
event?
post.
It's
This is post. This is
Yeah.
post the New York
This is all
event.
post New York. Yeah.
But like you live in a world where people are avenging shit all the time. Hulk and fucking Iron Man fought that one time in that skyscraper, and
Yeah.
aliens come down all the time, and there's Ultron sometimes. Like this shit happens all the
Yeah.
time, and they're like, I don't believe that you trained for kung fu for 15 years. That's not the most ridiculous thing to happen that week.
Yeah, Occam's razor in the Marvel universe is a little bit skewed.
It's kind of ridiculous. Like
it's a bit difficult.
they should all be like, oh, you trained for 15 years for kung fu. Well, why don't you have an alien gun? I've got an alien gun. They're
yeah, everyone's
everywhere.
got an alien gun.
Like
the
that
aliens
doesn't
came
happen
down
for some
and gave
reason.
us guns.
There's a Spider-Man floating about, whipping about, being a Spider-Man.
Is this pre-Spider-Man?
No, this is like this is like real time with the timeline of. So this is Spider-Man's about. He's thwipping about.
Yeah, but he's in a different like city, right?
No, that's New York.
He's in like bloody like
he's in New
different
York.
part of New York.
Yeah,
though,
he's in a
right?
different district.
Yeah.
But the difference between Hell's Kitchen and the rest of New York is not that great.
Yeah, but like it's the kind of thing where you don't hear anything about. You hear like they say Hell's Kitchen once in this entire series, so they keep them pretty.
No, I realize that, but it's the
pretty
same.
separate.
New York is when there's giant space worms flying through New York.
Plus, I'm pretty sure Spider-Man is real low key at the moment.
It's not
'cause he's
important.
just a
What
boy.
I'm saying, Ben, is you live in a world with Avengers and Avengers and Ultrons and shit. And
no, 'cause they're-
that one time in
that's-
Thor: The Second Thor, where there was the big red cloud and the world nearly got
We're
destroyed.
gonna have the Infinity Wars soon,
So like,
or something.
don't
I don't know.
don't hang your hat on the first 6 episodes relying on someone not believing you that you know super kung fu.
Let me just put it this way: I hope the Defenders are better.
Yeah, but Jessica Jones isn't that good, so I don't feel like.
Yeah, but you got Luke Cage.
Yeah, but that wasn't. I mean, that was pretty good.
I mean, who do you think they're gonna focus on with the Defenders? 'Cause Daredevil.
Yeah. I mean, because
Yeah,
he's
'cause
A,
he is-
he's A,
he
the
is
most
the best
interesting,
character.
and B, he's sort of
He got 2 seasons. I mean,
but he's also sort of had the most mysticism involved with his character. So far.
right?
Ironic, given that Danny Rand is the only one with magic, but that's whatever.
Yeah.
Look, there were parts.
I mean,
of,
because the ending of Iron Fist was basically Danny doesn't achieve his goal. Sucks to be him.
he got a haircut. though.
Series end. Yeah, he did get
He got a haircut by the end. Yeah, no, it was just one of those things where I was like, why? I get it. Like, he's gonna. Like, don't get me wrong. I get that he is a character that will slot into that team in a way that's going to be interesting. But in the current way that they've set it up,
It's just like, man, I do not.
Daredevil's a better fighter. Danny can basically never use the Iron Fist
Yeah.
because he's always tired or drugged or
Luke
whatever.
Cage is like cooler.
Luke Cage is a cool dude who doesn't really want to fight.
Yeah.
And then Jessica Jones is an angry alcoholic that has super strength that is pretty fucked up.
So if you take the parts of what Iron Fist is meant to be, so Iron Fist is meant to be like really good fighter, like
Yep.
very like sort of like not really like he's almost like a pacifist kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you just take like his emotion, and it's just like, okay, well, Daredevil's the fighter. You have the emotion and the alcoholism with Jessica
Yep.
Jones, and you have the pacifism in Luke Cage. He doesn't need to be there.
No.
Like,
Like,
we
I
don't
reckon he's
need
just
him.
going to be there to tell them about the hand. Like, give them more information. I think that's what he's going to do. Because I just don't see how
God.
you come back from the kind of
I
characterization.
mean, is Gao gonna continue to be the big bad? Because
well,
Gao
she's
was
not,
cool.
Well, she's not the big bad. There's someone above her.
Right.
You see that in Daredevil season 1, I think.
We see that in.
She mentions
You see
it.
that in Luke Cage as well.
Yeah, well, she mentions
a
it in
higher
this
up.
as well. But there's someone above her
Yeah.
that you get to see the back of in Daredevil season 1, I think. Like,
Right.
you see someone who's involved.
Yeah.
But I
You
guess
see it in Luke Cage.
That's
as well.
not especially interesting to me, though, because like the reason that Daredevil season 1 is so good is that it's a very personal story for Daredevil, right?
Right.
Like it's him and Fisk fucking like duking it out across New York.
Yeah.
And it's about him overcoming like his rage and his desire to kill. Like it's about his moral conflict between do I kill people or do I not?
Yeah.
Jessica Jones is kind of the same thing, but it's more about what do I have to sacrifice to get my fucking life back?
Yeah.
And then Luke Cage is sort of like, well, now when you've lost everything, how do you come back from that if you can't be hurt?
Yeah.
And
And
then
also cool music.
and then it's like Danny, Iron Fist is like, how do you get your life back if you're a petulant child billionaire?
Yeah.
Also,
Like-
why do we care? The mishandling of his like wealth in this was so like it was akin to like the Dark Knight Rises mishandling of Bruce Wayne's fortune. Like they wanted us to sympathize with a kid who literally the offer on the table was become a millionaire and fuck off, and he was like, "No, I want my company name back."
Yeah, it's like...
Why? You were gone for 15 years.
Yeah.
No one thinks it has anything to do with
Yeah,
you
it's
anymore.
not like his teachings were like, you are going to be the Iron Fist
And also,
the CEO
you must
of
also
Rand
be a
Industries.
CEO.
Yeah.
it doth make no. If he trusts the Meachums, right? We know he does.
'Cause he does, yeah.
Initially. So wouldn't he just be like, okay, buy
He would just
buy
go
me
in
out
and
of
see like, hey guys, I'm
wouldn't he-
here.
Yeah, he'd be like, buy me out of my shares. I'll
Yeah.
swing by the office sometimes. We'll have beers on a
Yeah,
Friday,
We'll have beers. We're going to have a chat. Literally none of this.
and I'll spend my money to take down the hand. Good, see ya.
Yeah. But he's like, no,
What the fuck?
I want to see what happened to my parents.
Like the mishandling of that simple transaction of character where
Well,
you
they
have
tried to kind of like ham fist that by having the whole the hand is running through the company thing. But even then, his first response wouldn't be, oh, well then I should definitely become the CEO of this company and remove the hand from the top down. It's like, no, the Iron Fist would go like bottom up. He would start like Luke
he'd
Caging
get-
some
yeah,
shit.
He'd Luke Cage some shit.
And they would be like, instead of him like, I think it would have been better if instead of him like immediately going to the Rand Industries and saying, I'm Danny Rand, if he was just like, if it's just like the Meachums are just like, there's this crazy guy just punching up our security dude. And then they manage to capture him in like episode 2.
Yeah.
And they bring him in. And they're like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Danny Rand. And then they're like, what the fuck? Like, that would have been so much better. Because then
You could have done so much with that.
Yeah.
Because if you had him sort of trying to get information on, like, what had happened to his parents and all the news reports and stuff, and that's sort of what he goes through.
Make him
and
do
then-
it from the bottom up. Don't just slot him into the top, make some dumb decisions, and then have this weird battle for like $500 million.
And then just have Harold fix it immediately.
Yeah.
And then have Harold not fix it because the hand are there, and then have like it was so convoluted to get him to the point where he was at his like all is lost moment, which is when
Which was like episode 10.
I don't know, that was when he first went to the compound.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool. This is gonna be like some fucking Walking Dead shit where this dude's gonna be like a crazy dictator
like,
or
walks
whatever.
Into the,
But they were out of there in
nah.
like half an episode.
Yeah.
I was like, why?
I-
Why?
yeah, I wanted,
make
like,
that the
some-
back 10 episodes. Make
Yeah.
it like he can't get into the company. He's thrown out. He's disgraced. He needs to take out the hand. And he goes to this compound. He finds they're helpful.
But then he gets like stuck.
And he slowly starts to realize that maybe they have ulterior motives. And
Yeah.
it's like this
He
weird
finds
cult
out
thing.
their ulterior motives in like the space of like a minute, and then a minute later he's left.
It should be like this really long, slow arc where he starts to trust Colleen more and more. They fall more and more in love. And then as he gets to the point where he's like, okay, I'm going to take out the hand. Suddenly they're like, you're not going anywhere. And he's like, what? And then you sort of
like,
slowly
why?
reveal
That they
Those-
are the hand the
and
whole
you
time.
kind of do
and it's a-
you pull the Walking Dead thing where over 2 seasons you start to realize that the governor is like this fucked up crazy person.
Yeah.
You do that over 10 episodes and you have the ending be Danny escapes from the compound to take down the hand, but at what cost?
yeah.
But instead
And when you're in the compound, you can have more kung fu, which is
you
good.
have so much kung fu.
You
You
have
can
a
have
whole
him.
lot of kung
You can have him
fu.
kung fuing, and you can have him because he can't reveal to them that he's investigating. He puts on a fucking mask. Puts on the Iron Fist mask. How good.
Sure.
Iron Fist's about at nighttime trying to get more information,
Yeah.
and they're like, someone's in here, they're fucking up our shit, but they don't know who it is because you're wearing a
Yeah.
mask. Oh, how good! Like that's
It'd be great.
Oh.
Give us like a little sneaky sneak.
And
but
you
no.
have this sneaky boy about doing like, amazing kung fu, and you can
No.
have Colleen being like, I woke up in the middle of the night. Where were you? And he's like, oh, it was just about.
Iron Fist, CEO is what we got. I
mean,
honestly thought the whole
I don't know.
like by like the third episode, I was just like, oh, maybe this one is gonna take like a weird different tack where it's all like business fighting, but then there was like actual fighting.
That'd have been
I was
kind
like,
of fun
what
if
is
it was.
Yeah, like just straight like lawyer fighting would be funny.
We have that in Daredevil though, and it's really
Yeah.
good. The problem is that Danny
like
is so-
especially when he got the lawyer and there was that whole like litigation shit going on. I was just like, oh man, this is just turning
And
into
Danny-
like fucking Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney.
Danny is so unrelatable throughout the whole show.
Oh my God,
Because
I
he's
hate
a
him so
billionaire who spurts out proverbs that he doesn't understand and is really good at kung fu.
Yeah,
Like-
and he's white.
It's like
So
Daredevil's broke. He has a disability. He's angry at basically the world.
yeah.
He's not sure if he likes doing his job or not, or if he's just doing it now because he's always wanted to do it. He's not sure if he can trust his friends properly with the things that he cares about. And he tries to help people because he thinks it's going to help and it never does.
Yeah.
He's so fucking relatable, it's not even funny. Jessica Jones is like this fucked up character who has who has one vice that she's used to try and deal with the trauma. Turns out that one vice that she's used to deal with the trauma is the very thing that's stopping her from dealing with it. Relatable as fuck.
Sure.
Luke Cage, dude who loses
Like
everything.
his family, and
His family is fucking, and like he's got this kind of hero complex where he refuses to help because he thinks that maybe that's the wrong thing to do,
Yeah.
and he doesn't know whether or not he should trust himself with the power he has.
He tries to like erase evil, but he just kind of like makes it stronger.
Yeah, and in doing so, he kind of erases what his life was in exchange for trying to erase that evil. But it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Relatable as fuck
And he
because
goes
we all
to
do.
jail.
That's
Relatable
less
as fuck.
relatable. But like, but getting punished for then trying to take an action in your life you
Right.
think's gonna help.
Yeah.
All of those are so relatable, but it's like Danny Rand. They just missed the mark by like half a football field. Like
Yeah, like
they're
half a football field and like a few $1 million in assets.
it just doesn't make sense. Because what you should do is bring him in and be like, okay, he's broke. He can't go back to the company. He's going to go work for Colleen. He's going to be penniless trying to fight the hand. It's going to be really difficult. He's going to really mature through that struggle of
Yeah.
being penniless.
I hated how his original like sort of what's the word I'm looking for? His original kind of like grip really his what am I looking for? Leverage. His original leverage on Colleen is just I have money. And you're like he's like
But
I
even
can pay
she-
your rent and she's like
But even she's like, whatever, I don't need it.
yeah, but
like,
then she's like sure.
it.
She doesn't say no. That's the thing.
I just don't. It doesn't.
He's like, I can pay you again. And she's like, I don't need the money. And he's like, oh, okay. And then she's just like, fix the tap and then we'll do it. And you're like, fuck off.
It doesn't-
have some integrity.
And have some
God damn
consistency,
it.
right? Like,
Yeah.
she should be like, yes, give me the money immediately.
Yeah.
Like, because anyone would be like, yes, give me your
Yeah,
millions
sure.
of dollars, you dickhead.
Yeah,
like,
you can
fine.
clean the toilets.
You can
for
live here if you
rent.
want. Whatever.
If you can pay me and also do work.
Yeah,
sure.
you can pay me and live here as long as you leave the students alone. Fine. But instead, it's this whole thing where they both flip-flop back and forth. And at least if Colleen was consistent, I would then forgive Danny being inconsistent, because then you would latch onto Colleen as the one you identify with.
Yeah.
Which you almost kind of do, because
Honestly, like for the first half of the series, I latched mostly onto Ward because he's like.
he's the most
He's
relatable.
like, yeah, he's the
like,
character where he's
everyone
sitting
is
here, he's
crazy.
just like, why is there? Yeah, you get these, and he acted it really well. Where he'll sit down and he'll do that thing where he'll just be like, why are people around me doing this? Like, why are you listening to this crazy boy?
He's like, this crazy homeless guy thinks he's Danny Rand.
It's just like,
What are you doing?
it's like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Why are there M&Ms on your desk? Like, it's so
Yeah,
good.
There's so many good lines where he just walks into a room and he's just like, honestly, I don't want to know anymore. I'm gonna go to the
He's like,
mental.
don't tell me about it. I'm gonna handle it.
Yeah.
He's the most relatable character, and
easily
he's
the
a,
best
and he's
character
a
in the film.
millionaire CEO.
Yeah.
That says a lot about the other characters.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Even Joy, like, was almost relatable throughout, but they never quite landed.
Joy was like she was almost relatable, but then she would like do things where you're just like, come on.
You're like, but that doesn't make sense.
yeah, like.
I don't know. It just felt like there were.
So I guess in general, the Meachums are the best part of this.
Well, yeah,
Series,
and I
actually.
mean, like, the guy who's Harold is an amazing. He does an amazing job
Yeah,
acting. in
Harold
this.
is insane
Fuck,
in this.
he's
Like,
so
he's
well
interesting,
acted.
and he's like he goes through all these weird phases.
The complexity of his conflict, like,
Yeah.
and the way that arc plays out, we slowly understand why he's doing everything he does, and
Yeah.
that, like, the progressive complication of his entrapment is so well executed. And then at the end, when, like, you know, when the first time that he gets killed and he comes back, you're like, oh,
You're like, oh, jeez.
like, it's like a real oh fuck moment, because
Yeah.
you're like, what is
You're like,
fucked?
what the hell?
Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is gonna happen now? Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's like that's one of those moments in a TV show where you're like, oh, shit's gone crazy. And then, you know, the struggle there is then they try and tie that into Danny's conflict, and it just doesn't really work.
Yeah, because you don't like.
And then Ward
when they-
fucking
yeah.
betrays him, and you understand why Ward betrayed him and why Harold's upset that he was betrayed. And it's like, oh, there's conflict
Just
there.
good.
But then it's in the larger context of this show that just kind of can't
Yeah, and
really
then
find
you
a
realize
voice.
you're watching Iron Fist, and you're
Yeah.
like, man.
It's really disappointing that they couldn't find that voice. Like, because, you know, obviously, you look at the other Netflix shows.
We know what it is. It's the Meachum story is it's like the Shades. What's his name?
Yeah, it's the Lady Macbeth story.
Yeah, it's that kind of side story that we had in Luke Cage that was really interesting and really gripping.
Yeah.
And like because that was kind of really the main story, and you had like the sort of the side of like Luke
Yeah.
Cage being a goof and having a fun time.
Yeah.
And then this one you have this really compelling drama, but the side is just like a shitty pile of
It's
turds.
bizarre, right? Because if you look at the other B plots of, like, so the B plot of Daredevil is, like, amazingly interesting, because Wilson
Yeah.
Fisk is this, like, totally complex, fucked up dude, and you've got, like, his assistant, What the fuck is his assistant's name? I can see the actor in my head.
Right.
But the relationship between him and his assistant's really interesting, and then you get to see Wilson Fisk become close with a woman, and his life is super interesting, and he's got this complex plot, and like the power struggle of the gangs and shit. It's like really interesting. And then you've got like obviously Luke Cage, where that whole plot's super fascinating.
Yeah.
And then you've got Jessica Jones, where the B plot is her best friend, and then this guy who sort of is doing these crazy super soldier serum drugs, and like how that all interacts with their lives and how it all kind of intersects and stuff. It's crazy cool and interesting and weird.
Yeah.
And then this one where it's like the side plot of like the Meachums and that stuff's really interesting, and like Harold's life is like crazy complicated, interesting.
Yeah, and like
conflict.
Ward's just like slowly breaking down as everyone around him goes.
As everyone,
It's like everyone around him is so crazy that he almost like embraces it, but then just falls off the dock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got, but then the main plot just doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have a voice, right? Whereas like the rest of it has a voice. Daredevil has a really strong voice because it's, you know, the banter between Foggy Nelson and Murdoch, and then the daredeviling itself where he's going out in the costume. That stuff is really strongly, it's very strongly composed. It all feels the same.
Yeah.
Same with Jessica Jones, where it's like her night, you know, she's always out about at nighttime. It's always kind of grimy and grotty, and she's always kind of drunk and angry, and that's very consistent. It feels very solid. Luke Cage has sort of got this like funky hip hop 90s vibe to it, and it's all consistent, and it's these amazing like one-liners.
Yeah, and
shit.
it's like the whole sort of like inner city struggle.
Yeah.
But now you have this guy who's literally
it's
bulletproof,
Harlem
and
as
it's a
fuck.
walking metaphor.
Yeah, it's super Harlem, and it's like
Yeah.
very consistent and strong, and it's robust. That's the other thing. Like even when they're not good, like Jessica Jones is like but it's robust. Like the themes are robust and the tone is robust. Whereas with this, it felt like at no point did they find their feet. At no point were they like, oh, that's what the show of Iron Fist is. Because, and I don't know, maybe I'm just biased because I didn't enjoy the portrayal of Iron Fist, but like you have to find the voice before the show can really find its feet, right?
Yeah.
Like if they'd found that robust kind of through line where they were like, okay, the Iron Fist is this guy who like, because really what it should have been is it's like, okay, you have a guy coming back from exile. It's the Batman Begins story. It's a guy coming back from exile.
Yeah.
Who has these crazy abilities, who is now trying to fit into society, and he's kind of forgotten how to do it. That's interesting, right? Because if he had those crazy abilities and that was consistent and robust,
Yeah.
then what you've got is this character who at all times is trying not to resort to beating the shit out of everyone with his crazy kung fu. That's cool, right?
Yeah.
That's like, okay, well, how do you solve the problem without turning to the violence that you learned at the monastery?
Yeah.
Cool, that's your robust through line, and then everything else falls into place, and you have like a really solid foundation. But it seemed like what they did is they tried to build like the roof racks without building the roof.
Well,
of the
it's
car.
almost like they tried to really integrate Danny into that side plot they had with the general company, and it's like, and they did that by like literally putting the hand, which was Danny's kind of target, into like Rand Industries, and they were just like, just put them together. We'll just have one.
They were like, what if they're one and the same?
Yeah, and you're like, you know, it's different where with Luke Cage. Like, yeah, they are one and the same, but he's only going after, like, the person. Like, you know who the target is. It's, what's his name? I forget his name.
The
Tooth snake thing.
The Prince bloke.
Yeah, Rattlesnake, whatever his name is.
Rattlesnake lizard man.
Yeah, he has a very obvious target, and the target changes, like, later on when he gets kind of overthrown.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it's not just this general, oh, this company is full of hand people. And you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah, there's no...
Like, I went to the 13th floor and there were evil people. You're like, what does that mean?
There's no real...
No one here understands what a multi-billion-dollar corporation structure looks like, so we don't have the context of
to understand
it's
that's
full
a
of the hand.
Because that... Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Whereas we know when you're like, oh, that nightclub is owned by a
by
mobster.
gang. Yeah, gang.
You're like,
mobster.
okay, cool.
You're like, cool. Yeah, I have context for what that is.
You're in Daredevil, and it's like, that guy runs a taxi ring, and they also murder people. And you're like, cool, I get it.
You're like, I can understand
those
that
people
at a base
smuggle
level.
children. I get it.
Yeah.
It's easy, like, you can get to it. It's accessible.
It's
Whereas,
like, there's corporate sabotage and, like bad people in this
we don't understand
corporation. You're
any
like,
of
what does
that.
that mean?
And, like, I guess if you had context
Like,
for that...
are the employees themselves like ninjas? Just fire them. But obviously, that's not the solution.
But why
Like-
couldn't you?
Yeah. Just
It's not, like...
fire them.
I don't know.
Just stop selling drugs? Like, where's
yeah,
the problem?
Again, it's like, I'm sure that's a good reason, but we don't... Because,
like, oh,
because we have no
Rand
context for how that company works, we don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just... This is my problem, and this is, I think, a good place to end. But what I guess there are so many good. As always, we get the most angry about stuff that could have been good, right?
Yeah.
And because this had so many elements in it, like the Harold plot, the Meachums, all that stuff. So interesting, like really well done, really well composed, really well executed. But the foundation isn't there, and you can't build a really good show if there's no strong foundation. You're literally like treading water instead of like building something. It's just unfortunate because
So it's the kind of thing where it's just like if you were to like envision like the move, and a lot of my reference comes to Luke Cage, but like if you envision like the poster of Luke Cage, it's like Luke Cage in the center, and then like all of the side characters like in the corner, like on his shoulders almost, because he's a strong big boy. He's like the big part of the show. But like you imagine like the poster for this, and it's like, where do you put Danny? Like he's not front and center because he's not that important, and he's a bit of a piss baby. So you put him off to the side, but then you're like, well, who goes on the front? You're like, the building. Like just
is it
like
Rand Enterprises?
like and the poster they use for it, like they use like the dragon symbol, and you're like, wow, that's very weak.
You're right.
When the main character is his chest tattoo, you're
It's
like,
not a tattoo, but yeah.
was the burn mark kind of thing.
Nah, well, sort of. It's a
Scar.
It's more his. It's sort of more. It's his connection to the
let's
to the
stop
dragon.
talking.
To the source
Let's
of
stop before we
the power.
get.
Yeah, it's not comics. Are bad. Look, I just want Defenders to be good.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for the Defenders because I just want more Luke Cage.
Yeah.
To be honest, and more Daredevil.
If you want more Luke Cage, just watch Jessica Jones because he's in that for a lot of it.
Yeah. Oh really? Oh,
Yeah,
Cool.
he's one of the best parts of that as well.
Sweet.
But yeah, no, have we got any recommendations for this week, Ben? Anything you've been
I don't know.
you've been peeping?
What have I been peeping?
I
don't know.
Probably nothing.
Just-
Just
not
catching up
much.
on Iron
Just
Fist.
Iron Fist in uni.
I was telling you in the car that I've been watching 13 Reasons Why on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's a sort of like a kind of like a crime mystery sort of thing.
I've been watching. Laura got me watching this anime called Crowds Gatchaman, and it's like a 13 episode thing, and it is just ridiculous. I would recommend it. It's complete garbage, but I love
I
it.
apologize for those of you listening at home that just like spontaneously got a nosebleed.
Yeah.
From the mention of anime. No, go check that out. What was the other thing? There's something that just came on Netflix that's amazing. The new Louis C.K. special. It's worth checking out. It's like it's like the edgiest shit he's ever done. It's really good.
Cool.
But yeah, peep that shit. But as always, Ben, it's that time of the week. Where can people find us?
Oh shit, I'm always bad at this time of the week. Facebook.
Yep.
Twitter.
Uh-huh.
YouTube.
Yep.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Redbubble.
Yep.
Patreon.
Yeah. Oh, good.
That's all of them.
Thanks to our patreon.com/DCM works. You'll get access to there's two episodes of Open to Suggestion up. A third one's going up tonight. That'll be some old content that we recorded that never made it to air, so you can check that out.
Oh god, what is it?
I'm not going to tell you. You have to subscribe to the Patreon to find out.
Can you tell me at least?
No, I can't.
I'm curious.
No, it's an old D&D podcast that we nearly started and didn't. So.
And then
Check it
things
out.
happen. I remember that.
Yeah, things got in the way. So check that out. It's really entertaining and some interesting stuff. There's 3 episodes that are open to suggestion. It's our Patreon only show where every few weeks Ben and I we sit down and we it's more about just we have a fun time. We have a good time.
It's the chill.
Yeah, it's where we sit down and we have a drink and we just put our feet
Shoot
up.
the
You know what I mean? So you can check that out. There's more Patreon only stuff coming. We've got the website in the works at the moment. So hopefully when the website's finished, you'll be able to log in with your Patreon details and just access that stuff super easily. So that's pretty much it for the Patreon stuff. As always, this episode is brought to you by our friends DigitalOcean.
Oh, bloody good.
They're a fantastic service for their web hosting service. They have SSD droplets. It's cloud-based storage. You can set one up in about 2 minutes. It takes no time at all. If you go to dcm.works/ocean, you get $10 of credit on us. That's about 2 months of hosting free. So even if you just sign up, do that, and then never pay for it, you've got basically an external hard drive you can access for anywhere for 2 months.
Sweet.
It's pretty good. So
Good
do
shit.
that if you want. They're great. We use them to host the podcast, and we've had no problems. I also wanted to apologize. I mentioned on Twitter.
Oh no.
Well, the team mentioned on Twitter that last week and the week before, the episodes of AFA went up at the same time they normally do, but they weren't registering in iTunes until the next day for some reason.
Oh no.
So I looked into it, and we found that there was sort of an error that was occurring between the way that iTunes was picking up the feed.
Right.
That has been fixed. So hopefully this episode will go up on Friday as usual.
Who knows? This might be going up on Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I just thought I'd mention that because some people asked me on Twitter. Big thanks as always to Jordan and Anonymous, who are currently our two top donating
Thanks,
patrons. So thanks for that. And yeah, if you want to Check us out. Make sure you hit us up on our socials. I'm at DC on my Hate Pie.
I'm at Literal Citrus.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Yep.
Y'all niggas bitches